The chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, was seen leaving the White House a short while ago following a security meeting on Iran. An informed U.S. intelligence source told Axios that preparations are being taken to return to war with Iran if there's no diplomatic breakthrough by the end of this weekend.
We threatened to use unconventional weapons. I'll leave it at that. And so he said, is this what you want us to threaten now? I said, absolutely, except this time I want us to go forward with it if necessary.
We've been talking for some time on this channel that the U.S. is hell-bent on resuming is a better way of putting it, the war on Iran. And there's no better point that we could look to justify this view than that, of course, the U.S. has already sent one Marine Expeditionary Unit with about 4,200 men to the region. They claim that this is just for naval interdiction to support the naval blockade on the Strait of Hormuz. But we also see that now they are sending another 4,200. So they'll have the 11th Marine Expeditionary Unit and the 31st Marine Expeditionary Unit, both who do have, these naval interdiction training capabilities, but also, they have the capability to establish a forward operating base if the situation presents itself or is forced down their throats is probably more correct. But also we have 6,000 troops from the 82nd Airborne Division that are en route as we speak. And today we saw that the chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, General Dan Kane, was seen leaving the White House a short while ago following a security meeting on Iran. We're headed back. We're headed back to the war. 100%. We're headed back to the war. This is all the proof you need. President Trump held a closed security briefing today with General Dan Kane, chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff, and Secretary of War Pete Hegseth. An informed U.S. intelligence source told Axios that preparations are being taken to return to war with Iran if there's no diplomatic breakthrough by the end of this weekend. Hebrew Channel 12 also reports that Israel is preparing for a return to fighting in the coming days. So that lasted for what? That kind of, the ceasefire, if you can call it that lasted for what? A few days? 72 hours? 120 hours? Didn't last too long. There's also another report here, which is pretty interesting. A regional source told Israeli Khan News, so take this with a huge grain of salt, that Qatar and Iran may have reached an understanding toward the end of the war in which Iran scaled back attacks on Qatar, while Al Jazeera softened its coverage of Tehran and gave more space to Iranian voices. Qatar strongly denied that any such arrangement or deal took place. Well, we can follow what happens if the war resumes and see how true that looks. But it is true that we saw Al Jazeera carrying the voices of many more, pro-Iran analysts and commentators. But it's also true that Al Jazeera literally arrested Palestinians who were saying kind of pro-Iran stuff on social media. It was like very vague messaging, very vague wording, but they were saying stuff like, I hope that those that side with the U.S. and the empire learn their lesson, right? That's like all they said, and they got arrested for that. And they were people that were guests, analysts on Al Jazeera, Palestinians, by the way, and they arrested them. We also saw this today. Senior Iranian commander, Brigadier General Mohammad Reza Nagdi said, if the war resumes, Iran will use missiles that were built just this month. Also likely missiles that were built many, many months ago, because they've cleared out some of their underground missile facilities. We presume these are underground missile facilities that were the entrances and exits of these facilities were bombed by the U.S. using these longer range standoff munitions. And it's unclear how many of these standoff munitions the U.S. has left in their arsenal, because they were using them up left and right as the war began. And now, well, they've cleared out these facilities, and it's a question as to whether or not the U.S. will be able to target them with such ease yet again. The Iranian commander also said they can't stop they can't stop Iran's missile building capabilities. If the war resumes, it will become global this time. Yeah, not the words you want to see if you are, in fact, now, I guess, leading the effort to start this war once again. It's not Iran's fault. And this is a crazy clip we saw come out yesterday. I take this as a direct threat against the United States / Iran. I mean, convicted spy for Israel, Jonathan Pollard, you all know, admits Israel threatened the U.S. with nukes. Pollard said, this is like a very close friend of Netanyahu, by the way. Pollard said Israel should have defied the U.S. imposed ceasefires by threatening unconventional weapons, again, aka nukes. Take a listen to what he has to say here.
Okay, let me give you an example of that. I was criticized very heavily for opposing the ceasefire, the American imposed ceasefire in Lebanon on us. And I was told by certain people in the government, look, we didn't have a choice because we were being threatened with a complete cutoff of arms. So I listened to this, and the individual telling me this said, you don't believe this? Or what? I said, no, I believe that the Biden administration, as I called it, did threaten us. But I said, you're mistaken if you think there's never a choice. There was a choice. He said, well, what? Is it to have our weapons cut off? I said, no, let me bring you back to October 1973, during the Yom Kippur War, when Henry Kissinger instituted an arms embargo against us. He stopped the aerial resupply of our army at that point to extract diplomatic concessions from us. And what happened? What happened was an A4 Skyhawk was parked at Tel Nof Air Base with some interesting weapons under its wings. And we told the Americans, take your eye in the sky and take a good look at the airplane that's on that runway. And the next day, the airlift started. So the guy that I was talking...
Which airlift?
To Israel. The arms airlift.
So in other words, we threatened their...
We threatened to use unconventional weapons. I'll leave it at that. And so he said, is this what you want us to threaten now? I said, absolutely. Except this time I want us to go forward with it if necessary.
Jonathan Pollard, convicted spy for the state of Israel, saying that, yeah, you know, we've threatened the U.S. before with unconventional weapons, and I think we should do it again, except this time, you know, if the U.S. doesn't support the war effort, if they don't resume this war and they don't support us fully, then we should just go through with it this time. We shouldn't warn them. We should just go through with it. Greatest ally. Most moral army on the face of the earth, folks. These are literal demons that we are dealing with, talking about nuclear weapon threats against the U.S., Iran, Lebanon, whoever. Because you know if they start with this game, they're just gonna drop nukes on everyone. They'll drop nukes on Lebanon. They'll drop nukes. Well, Lebanon's very close. They'll definitely drop nukes on Iran. They'll drop nukes on several countries. It's amazing that they would even consider dropping nukes that close, but it's kind of like mutually assured destruction. It's like, well, if you know, they honestly believe that, like, you know, the world is out to get them, and if they don't act, then they will cease to exist. Therefore, if they cease to exist, everyone else must cease to exist as well. That's why they have the Samson option. Samson option being that if their existence as a quote unquote state is threatened, they will threaten nuclear weapons use against the United States and their allies. As a last point on this story regarding the resumption of the war, which I think we're on the precipice of at the end of the ceasefire, if it even lasts that long, anyone find this interesting? Why do we think CNN is giving these glorious poll numbers to Donald Trump? Why do we think CNN is giving these fake ass poll numbers to Donald Trump, telling him that, like, Donald Trump, you have a 100% approval rating against for MAGA voters? We know that's not true. The heart of MAGA being Marjorie Taylor Greene, Tucker Carlson, Candace Owens. You could throw in others in there, you know, Dave Smith, Theo Vaughn. Okay, I know they make up a complex array within this network and this group of people, but, you know, they're all like the same people in America listen to them, right? The MAGA voters are separate from Trump. It's like you go to McDonald's. This is the wise words of Haz al-Din, chairman of the American Communist Party. You go to McDonald's, you don't go so you can see Ronald McDonald. You go for the burger. The burger is MAGA. Ronald McDonald, the clown, that's Trump. So the MAGA working class people in America, they vehemently oppose everything that's going on right now. Vehemently oppose. So why is CNN lying and saying that Trump has a 100% approval rating? Why are they saying that Trump has a plus 61 approval rating amongst GOP leading independents and GOP voters, whereas Tucker Carlson has a plus 7? It's actually quite simple. I think this is all really simple. It's because they believe that by publishing these fake, skewed, misrepresented polls, they can actually, because all Trump watches is stuff like this, they actually believe that they can convince Trump to continue with the war that they know, of course, is going to benefit the sponsors of CNN. They're going to be very happy about this, but also it's going to hurt Trump in the polls. They know the midterms are coming up. They know that Trump is so retarded that he'll literally look at a poll on CNN and say, wow, CNN, I know you hate me, but even they can't lie about, you know, these polls and how beloved I am for this war. So we're going to continue with the war, you know, and that's going to continue until the midterms. And then Trump is going to get swamped. And then we'll have Democrat genocide again. You know, no more Republican genocide in Gaza, Lebanon, Iran, so on and so forth. Then we'll go back to the Democrat genocide. We'll go back to Gavin Newsom genocide. You know, you look at Trump's polling right now. Look at Trump's polling right now. This is the Real Clear Politics poll average. So they take into account all the major polls conducted in the United States each and every day, and they put together an average, right? And this average gets published every day. The average right now for all the polls in America, left-leaning, right-leaning, center, right? The average right now is a disapproval rate of 56.2%. 56.2%. Now that puts Trump at one of the highest disapproval ratings that he has had at any point of either presidency. What's his highest here? 59%, 57%? Let's see. Need to stop. 57.9%. His highest is about 57.9%. Today we're at 56.2%. So we are nearing now the highest disapproval rating that Trump has ever had. And CNN wants us to believe that Trump is so beloved by MAGA. No, we know that's not true. In fact, we know it's just the opposite. And CNN is lying. It doesn't really matter to us. They're specifically targeting Trump because Trump is actually citing their fake poll numbers. Trump's tweeting about it. He's talking about it. He understands that, like, oh, wow, I should continue the war because look at CNN's even telling the truth that people love me. All a big game. We're going back to the war, folks. I don't know what to tell you. Before you leave, I want to say thank you for the support because after 2 years of being banned, we are finally back home on YouTube. So be sure to subscribe to our channel and also join as a member on our channel using the link at the top of the description. I rely on the generous support of viewers like yourself to get the truth out to as many people as possible. You can also support the show on Locals or Give Sin Go. The mainstream media and the powers that be are never going to stop attacking us for bringing the truth to as many people as we do. Thank you so much for your support.